Hello, everyone, and welcome to It Really Happened, where we bring you history's most unbelievable true stories. Today, we're taking you back to 1918, to the battle-scarred forests of France during World War I, to relive the incredible story of an unlikely hero. But this hero isn't a soldier with a gun, it's a pigeon with a message. Sent on a life-or-death mission to save a trapped battalion, this bird's bravery is a legend of survival against all odds. Get ready for a tale of courage in the most unexpected form as we dive into the heroic flight that turned the tide of a desperate battle. It's 1918 and you're in the muddy trenches of France. The air is thick with smoke, the ground shakes from constant shelling, and the noise is deafening. In this chaos, communication is a matter of life and death. But here's the problem. Traditional methods are failing left and right. Soldiers attempting to use field telephones during World War I is like trying to make a phone call in the middle of an earthquake. The constant artillery bombardments would tear through communication lines. One well-placed shell could sever the connection between units, leaving them cut off and dangerously exposed. You might think the radio could save the day. But in 1918, radio technology was still in its early stages, far from reliable, and was easy to intercept. Soldiers found themselves in a nightmarish game of broken telephones, desperately trying to relay crucial information. So, what about sending a soldier with a message? Well, that was like playing a deadly game of chance. These brave messengers had to dodge bullets, navigate through no man's land, and hope they didn't end up in an enemy trench by mistake. As you can imagine, this communication breakdown was causing some serious problems. Soldiers were getting trapped behind enemy lines with no way to call for help. The very backbone of military strategy, clear, rapid communication, was crumbling under the weight of modern warfare. During this communication breakdown, an unlikely hero was about to emerge. Nature, it turns out, had already perfected a messaging system that could withstand the chaos of war: carrier pigeons. These feathered messengers could do what no technology or human could. They could soar above the trenches, navigate through smoke and poor visibility, and deliver messages with astonishing reliability. No phone line to cut, no radio to jam, and no sniper could easily take down these swift, small targets. The U.S. Army was so convinced of the pigeon's potential that they established an entire pigeon service as part of the Signal Corps in July 1917. By November, these feathered soldiers were winging their way across the battlefields of France, carrying messages that could mean the difference between life and death for hundreds of men. But here's the thing, not just any pigeon would do. The military needed birds with exceptional speed, endurance, and an uncanny ability to find their way home. And one pigeon named Cher Ami was about to prove just how valuable these birds could be. Born in England in 1918, Cher Ami was a black-checked cock-carrier pigeon. Despite his French name, which means dear friend, this feathered fighter was bred for the American war effort. Soon after hatching, Cher Ami was shipped across the Channel to France, where he joined the ranks of the American Signal Corps. The U.S. Army ran a rigorous training program for these carrier pigeons. At first, the trainers would release the pigeons just a few hundred feet from their loft. But as the weeks went by, those distances grew. Soon, these feathered recruits were flying several miles, navigating through all kinds of weather and terrain. Cher Ami quickly stood out from his fellow trainees, showing an uncanny ability to find his way home, no matter what obstacles were thrown in his path. He completed 12 important deliveries from the Verdun front to a loft at Rampont. We're talking about an average distance of 30 kilometers, covered in an average time of just 24 minutes. Even more remarkably, Cher Ami was accomplishing this while dodging bullets and artillery fire. As Cher Ami's reputation grew, so did the importance of his missions. military commanders began to rely on him for the most critical communications. This combination of speed, accuracy, and sheer determination made Cher Ami a legend among the troops. It was October 1918, and the 77th Division of the United States Army was pushing deep into the Argonne forest that had become a battleground. The Lost Battalion, as they would come to be known, was a collection of companies from the 306th, 307th, and 308th Infantry Regiments with about 554 men in total, led by Major Charles Whittlesey. As they advanced into the forest, the men of the 77th suddenly realized they were cut off from the rest of their division. German forces had slipped surrounding them. As the days dragged on, resources ran out. The soldiers were reduced to eating leaves and roots and collecting rainwater in their helmets to quench their thirst. Medical supplies were running low, leaving the wounded to suffer without proper care. The dead lay where they fell, a grim reminder of the battalion's precarious position. Despite these horrendous conditions, Major Whittlesey and his men refused to give up. But bravery alone couldn't save the Lost Battalion. Several attempts were made to reach the trapped soldiers, but each one failed. As the situation grew more desperate, Major Whittlesey turned to an unlikely source of hope. Carrier pigeons? These brave birds were the battalion's last link to the outside world, their only chance of letting headquarters know their exact position and situation. One by one, pigeons were released with messages pleading for help. But they were shot down by German snipers who knew exactly what these birds represented. With their numbers dwindling and hope fading, Major Whittlesey made a fateful decision. He had one pigeon left, a bird named Cher Ami. In a last-ditch effort, Whittlesey penned a desperate message. "We are along the road parallel to 276.4. Our own artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it." It was the Lost Battalion's final cry for help, their last chance of survival. The fate of these brave men now rested on the wings of a single bird. With the fate of 194 men hanging in the balance, Cher Ami soared into the sky. He has a mission to fly a 25-mile journey through one of the most dangerous war zones, with the message of Major Whittlesey's desperate plea fastened to its leg. German forces, well aware of the Allies' use of messenger pigeons, had their eyes trained on the skies. Sharpshooters were under strict orders to take down any birds they spotted. But it wasn't just human enemies Cher Ami had to worry about. The Germans had even employed falcons to intercept these feathered messengers, turning the air into a deadly obstacle course. As Cher Ami climbed higher, seeking the safest route back to headquarters, the German soldiers below spotted the bird. In an instant, the air erupted with gunfire. Then, the unthinkable happened. A bullet found its mark, tearing through Cher Ami's breast. The impact shattered the bird's breastbone, sending shock waves through his body. For a moment, Cher Ami faltered, dropping several feet in the air. But somehow, against all odds, those wings kept beating. The German soldiers, thinking they'd succeeded in downing the pigeon, turned their attention elsewhere. But Cher Ami wasn't finished. Despite the excruciating pain and loss of blood, the brave bird regained altitude and pressed on toward its destination. But the ordeal wasn't over. As Cher Ami flew on, another bullet struck. This time, it hit the bird's leg, the very leg carrying the crucial message. The force of the impact nearly severed the limb, leaving it hanging by a mere tendon. For 25 agonizing minutes, Cher Ami battled through the air. Each wing beat was a struggle against pain, exhaustion, and the very laws of nature. As Cher Ami approached the American headquarters, those on the ground could hardly believe their eyes. With the last ounce of strength, Cher Ami crash-landed at the headquarters. The bird was a pitiful sight, but there, still miraculously tied to the injured leg, was the message tube. Cher Ami had completed the mission. Army medics rushed to attend to the wounded hero. They carefully removed the message, quickly relaying its contents to the commanding officers. Within minutes, orders were being shouted and plans to rescue the lost battalion were set in motion. Cher Ami's incredible flight had not been in vain. Help was on the way from Major Whittlesey and his men. The artillery barrage on the lost battalion's position was immediately halted and a rescue operation was launched. When the rescuers finally broke through on October 8th, the scene was one of both joy and heartbreak. Out of the original 554 men who had been cut off, only 194 were able to walk out on their own. But what happened to Cher Ami? After recovering from his injuries, he was carefully transported back to his cozy pigeon loft in Washington, D.C., under the watchful care of the U.S. Army Signal Corps. Sadly, Cher Ami's retirement was short-lived. On June 13, 1919, less than a year after his famous mission, Cher Ami passed away. The most prestigious award Cher Ami received was the Croix-De-Guerre, a French military decoration. This wasn't just any medal. It was one of France's highest military honors, usually reserved for soldiers who had shown exceptional valor in combat. While in the United States, Cher Ami was honored with a gold medal by the organized bodies of American pigeon fanciers. The most important lesson we can learn from Cher Ami is the enduring power of courage and determination. In a world that often feels overwhelming, this little bird's story reminds us that one individual, no matter how small, can make a lot of difference. It's a message that continues to resonate, inspiring people to persevere through hardships and continue fighting for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against them. What do you think about the bravery of this little pigeon and its impact on history? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video inspiring, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more fascinating tales from history. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep seeking out the extraordinary and the ordinary.